Ignore the mess behind me, ignore my mess. This is how we're gonna do this video. So hi guys, my name is Izzy. I'm a sporadic YouTuber. We are gonna do this video super laid back, super chill. I just woke up. This is what I look like. My hair needs to be desperately washed, and we got coffee. So this video is going to be super boring because I've only been on YouTube for, I don't know, 12 years, and I still use the most basic editing software of all time. So I have no way to like put charts here for you or put graphs here for you. I have none of that. I suck. I'm sorry. Maybe someday I'll grow up and be a real YouTuber and actually care about stats and analytics and editing and care about views, but for now, here we are. I really should care, man, with how long I've been on YouTube. I really should care, but I don't. Every time I look at analytics, I just feel bad. Like, I rarely look at my analytics. Like, every now and then I'll catch, like, a glimpse of, like, you lost 2 subscribers this month. And I'm like, ah! Yeah, I don't care. I don't care. I don't want to know. I won't want to know. All I want is this. I want us to interact, and I want you to watch this very extremely long, terrible video. I'm sorry. You're probably not going to watch all of this. I'm so sorry. If you watch all of this, I love you because we can be best friends because you apparently like hearing me talk about numbers. Anyway, let's talk stats, guys. So I'm gonna start with the basic stuff. I read 82 books out of 96 was my goal. It's the first Goodreads goal that I failed. We've talked about what happened this past year. Over those 82 books, my page count was 24,815 pages. According to my graph. I don't know what it really is, let's be real. It's probably off. But my best month for books were actually 2 months. I read 11 books in May and 11 books in July, which those numbers don't surprise me at all because May is like the end of school. So like I'm like free, and there's so many good like readathons happening. Same with July. July I'm usually back from vacation. It's summer. All I'm doing is reading in my free time. So yeah, those numbers don't surprise me at all. And my worst month is November, which makes sense because November is closer to preparing for doing the final projects for school and preparing for finals and all that stuff. But June was, I only read 2 books in June, which makes sense as well because I was on vacation. Whenever I'm on vacation, I take like 1 chunky book with me and that's it. And that's 2 weeks out of the month just right there. So I'm usually not reading that much in June, even though it's my birthday month. And the page count matches as well. My best month page count wise was May. So the page count kind of matches the same days or whatever. My average pages per day, if we do that stat, it is 68 pages a day, which I thought it was pretty low, but I mean, judging by I did fail my goal, so that's not really surprising. And it usually takes me about 4 days to finish a book. But if we're looking at page count, are you bored of these numbers already? If we're looking at page count, I usually, the most books that I read last year were 30 pages, yeah, or 300 to 399, so 300 to 400 pages, just about. So that was like the biggest category, which makes sense. That seems about right. So that makes sense that it would take me like 4 days to finish that, especially if I'm like taking my time and enjoying myself. So yeah. The longest book that I read was A Clash of Kings, which I don't have that here. It's over on the floor probably. But yeah, it's a hefty book like this one. It says the shortest book I read was The Dispatcher, which was an audiobook. I don't know if that's true. I mean, it probably is, like, audio-wise, but the actual shortest physical book that I read, according to Goodreads, was The Crow, which, if you watch my worst of video, it's a terrible book, and it was trash, and it was my least favorite book of the year. So I'm glad it was super short, because fuck that graphic novel, it's terrible. Don't read it. If we're going by years published, which is actually one of my favorite stats, I like this one a lot. I just like to see what years I'm reading from. So 2018 is actually the year that I read the most from, which is surprising to me a little bit. but not really. It kind of makes sense because I'm usually trying to catch up to the previous year. So yeah, 2018 was the year that I read the most stuff. I read 8 books from 2019, which was surprising to me. And then my other like highest category was books set in the early 2000s, which is not surprising again either. My oldest book that I read was a book set in the 80s, which I believe was Pet Sematary, because I think it's like 84, 85, 86. I don't remember. Ooh, let's talk about genre. People like genre. Now, I suck at doing this. Hopefully next year when I do this, this video won't be as shitty, but maybe next year when I do this, hopefully I'll get better at putting in the genres. There were like 4 just regular fiction that I had no idea where to put them, so I just left them as fiction. So 10 nonfiction, which was really surprising, but my highest category was 17 fantasy, which actually isn't super surprising. A little surprising, but not really. The next category that was high up was contemporary, which makes sense. I like hard-hitting contemporary specifically. And then 10 thriller mysteries, which, and 10 horror, which is good. Because I did say that I wanted to read more horror, more thrillers, and yeah, I don't know if I did do that, but they were high up on the list. Also, the highest page count that I did was fantasy, which makes sense because Song of Ice and Fire. Because those books are like, burp. I had 9 rereads this past year, which makes sense. I was finishing up the series of Unfortunate Events, reread with Shannon. I reread the first book in the All the Wrong Questions series, and then read the entire series of Shannon, but the first book was a reread. What else did I reread? I read Becoming twice by Michelle Obama, so that was a reread for one of those. Harry Potter, the last book in Harry Potter was a reread. So yeah, those numbers make sense to me. Vampire Knight, I reread those. I haven't read the entire series, but the books that I read were rereads. So yeah, that was kind of cool to see like my reads versus rereads. So 64 of my books supposedly, or something like that. I think 66 is more accurate, but were physical. 66 I own physically, I think, was what I was trying to get at. But 64 I actually read physically, because a lot of books sometimes if I own a book, the Song of Ice and Fire is a perfect example of that. I own them, but actually I got them for Josh, but I own them, but I listen to the audiobooks because they're chunky. Same with Bernie Sanders and Becoming. I listened to the audiobook for those. So yeah, so 18 were digital, which was interesting. 209 hours of audio is what I listened to, which I found that number interesting. Now if we're talking age group, this is another category I like to look at the numbers, but they're all like relatively close except for middle grade. But I read 34 adult titles, 31 YA titles, 31 YA titles, and I read 17 middle grade, which is pretty high number actually for middle grade, which is great. I love reading middle grade, want to continue to read more of middle grade, but a lot of that was Shannon and I's buddy reads. We read a lot of middle grade together. This number is really scary to me actually. So I completed 4 series, 3 of which were with Shannon. The other one that I finished finally was the series, not the series of Unfortunate Events, the Harry Potter reread. I finally finished the last book in the Harry Potter reread. But I started, and I'm currently reading ongoing series, 40 different titles that I currently read books from, and that's not even all the series that I'm reading right now, or that I've started. Like, you can't, I don't think you can see, but these 2 shelves right here, if I ever do a fucking bookshelf tour, maybe someday, these 2 shelves, and then a little bit more, are all series that I've started that I haven't read these books from the series. And these are just the ones I own. There's like other ones in that series that I just don't own yet. Yeah, so I read 44 series, or parts of series, and 38 standalone books. Authors, gender, if you care about that. Female was my highest. I read 50% female, actually. 50% female, which was surprising. And 38% male. I read 10 titles where it was both, which I liked that. I thought that was pretty interesting that I read combination. Protagonist-wise, I apparently really like an ensemble, because that's what I read the most of, was ensembles. I read 30 titles with ensembles, and then I read 29 females protagonists, which was surprising to me. I feel like I read more male protagonists for some reason, and 23 male protagonists. Although I could have fucked up entering any of these numbers in here, so that might be true too. Author country. This one was really exciting to me. Really exciting and surprising. So I read 65 US authors. Doesn't surprise me there. 4 Canadian authors, which was a little surprising. 1 Australian, which I believe is Jessica Townsend from Nevermore. I believe she's Australian, but I believe she lives in the US. She might have dual citizenship or something. I don't know, but she's Australian, but I think she lives in the US, so technically I guess she's US, but let me have my goddamn Australian. 6 England. 6 authors from England. 3 from Japan, which makes sense because I did reread the Vampire Knight, those first couple books in the Vampire Knight series, so yeah, that makes sense. 1 South Africa, which is Trevor Noah's book, which should have been on my best of list actually, but I completely forgot about it because I don't own it physically. I keep trying to get a copy of it and I haven't yet. And then 1 from New Zealand. I can't remember who was from New Zealand. 1 from Italy, which was the book that I hated the most this year, which is kind of sad, which was The Crow. But yeah, I thought that was pretty interesting. Let's talk ratings. That is the last category I have. Now these ratings might be a little off because I sometimes change them afterwards. So my average rating was 4.4. So my average rating was a 4. Which makes sense. I typically rate very high. I hate rating low because I think about all the work that these authors put into their books, and as someone who's trying to write their own goddamn book, I can't even begin to like just strip down people's art. I don't know, I just feel so bad. I feel so bad. I wish I was more critical. Who was I talking to? Booksnake Aaron, I think is your title, is your screen name, but I was talking to him about how he commented on my my best of list, I believe, and he was talking about his ratings. It was either the best of or the worst of that he was talking about his rating, and he got really critical this year, and I follow him on Instagram as well, and yeah, he got really critical with his like ratings, and I wish I could be like that, because I feel like it would really like show me like more specifically what I like in books. But I'm like such a softie when I first rate a book. But I should go back. If I go back later and rethink about it, I'll probably like knock my ratings down. But a 4 makes sense for me because I'm a softie. So the highest rated books was 44, 5 stars, which is crazy. But I did have a really good reading year, like books wise. It was really hard to narrow down my top 10. And it gets harder and harder every year. That's what she said. But it gets harder and harder every year to narrow those books down. And I think that's a good thing. It means that I'm picking up more of what I want to read. I'm learning more about what I actually like in books, and I'm not pushing myself to read titles that I know I'm not going to enjoy. Says the girl who wants to just binge the entire Mortal Instruments series because they're terrible and I just want to be done with them. Says the girl who wants to torture herself and do that. But yeah, the other highest category was 4 stars. I gave 28 4 stars out. 9 3 stars. 1 2 star, which I think is probably a 1 star, let's be real. Anyway, I love you guys. I will see you in the next video. All that fun stuff. I'm so sorry if you made it through this entire thing and you watched all of this. I'm so sorry. Anyway, I'm gonna go. I love you guys. Sorry for this shitty video. I will see you in the next one. Hopefully it's a little bit better. It won't be. Who am I kidding? I love you. Bye.